Hey friends, welcome back to the Dance Principals United podcast. I am so excited to welcome back the Lil Groovers team, Samson Smith and Chantal back on the podcast. Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Very good.
We are so good. Excited to be here.
Good. Yes, it is so good to have you back. Last week we had the most incredible chat about preschool concerts. It was so good to hear so many of your tips. I saw a lot of people loved your Courage Dust tip. Such a cute tip, right?
Yeah, such a game changer that is, I promise, and such a good confidence builder for the little ones.
Absolutely. Now, you guys are the absolute bosses of all things preschool. So we thought, we've talked concert, but let's take it back a little bit and chat about when the kids first start in your studio, because I know a lot of studio owners struggle with making sure that their kids feel confident, knowing whether the kids are old enough to start, getting them into that first class, because it can be a big thing if you're not used to working with children, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely knowing who's coming into the classroom before you can. So we're pretty big on calling our inquiries. Obviously, trying to reach out in other ways as well, but then just getting on the parents' level to find out, first of all, have they even done any sort of classes before, or will this be their very first time? Like, what kind of experience? Yeah,
there's a lot of prep before they come in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good thing, right? Because I think sometimes, especially if we've got new teachers or younger teachers that aren't super experienced in preschool, that for some students coming in, it might be their first time doing any organized activity. It might be their first time away from their parents. And it's to know what you're kind of getting into is such a good kind of idea, because some that go to preschool 5 days a week are totally fine, but some have never been away from mum for more than an hour, so it's so different.
But it also helps you understand the parent as well and where they're coming from. Is it their first time doing something like this? So I'll always ask a really open-ended question that I'll just let them talk, and you can see their personality. If there's any anxieties, I usually just say, so tell me a little bit about your child, whatever their name is, and let them talk about it, see what they come up with. You'll have that parent who's like, yeah, they're great, they just love dancing, or you'll have the one who really gives you the whole rundown of everything about their child. So it kind of just gives you insight into who's coming into the studio, and just so you can give a heads up to your teacher being like, hey, we've got this child coming in. They're a little bit nervous usually, and sometimes on the day they'll come in and they're fine. It kind of just but you're prepared for that.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And so let's pull it all the way back and sort of start at, we were chatting before we started about, the whole inquiry process, because that has such, a lot to do with the little people when they first come in, and setting them up for success, setting both them and the parent up for success when they come in. So, the parent calls for the inquiry. As you said, you ask an open-ended question just to kind of get a bit of a feel from them. Then, do you do anything special before that child actually comes in for their first trial class? What kind of things do you do before they actually start?
Yeah, so we definitely send the parents a little video, a fun video that also the kid can watch as well.
Cool.
And just basically take them through what to expect in that class. So just little things like they're going to meet their teacher. There are also going to be other kids in the class. There's going to be music that's playing, just little things that touch on the main points of what the preschooler should expect, but also gives that parent who's feeling a little bit anxious just a heads up on, hey, this is going to happen. This is how things are going to roll. Because I think sometimes the parent is definitely more anxious than the kid, because they have no idea they're coming in usually.
Absolutely.
All of the things in their head, like, what should I bring? Should I bring a water bottle? What should they wear? Like all of those questions. So it just kind of addresses all of that in a cool video.
I think the video also shows the space of the studio. So, and it's kind of, kids watching TV these days with all the cartoons and then when they come to the studio, it's like reality. It's like, wow, I was just watching this on my TV screen at home.
Yeah.
So it's familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cute. So do you just have like one video you do at the beginning of the year and you just send it out to every preschool inquiry, or do you like custom do each one as they go?
We just do one.
Just the one.
Yeah, awesome.
For everyone.
Mm,
And we do
make
customize
it
videos
easy.
here, but yeah, we just refine it for the one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key, making it easy. So it's not so much always the preschool teacher that they're going to have, but like an example of like, a teacher. Is that right? That they have on the
Yeah,
video? Yeah,
we
awesome.
animate a little bit, so it's like a little bit cartoony, and then we take them
Oh,
into the space.
cute.
Yes.
Yeah, so just kind of so they're intrigued and interested and want to watch it. We don't really put a lot of focus on our teachers, to be honest.
Yeah.
We do it more about the studio and the values that we're going to bring, rather than placing it on a person.
And as a studio owner, like that's a really big tip, right? Like that's what I've always been about as well, because staff come and go, but the studio culture remains the same regardless. So, you don't want them to whilst you want them to form great bonds with their kids. Sorry, my computer's doing funny things. Those people that are listening to the audio recording. But yeah, whilst you want your teachers to create great bonds with the kids, you don't want them to become too attached, because it should be the studio and the culture that they're attached to, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's always about the culture of our studio. We're really, really.
Yes. I love
Yeah.
that. That's so cute that you animate it as well. Like, do you feel like it's important just to kind of make it exciting and on a preschool level? So have you got like little mascot characters that you do it, or is it like bubble writing, or like, what do you mean by animated?
It's a cartoon, and definitely, I think if there's one thing you have to do when you teach preschoolers, it's get on their level. Like
Yeah.
we've had teachers come in, right, and they're like a little bit embarrassed, and then they see like Samson and I as the studio owners, and they're thinking, oh, like they're probably too cool to get in the preschool class, and you have to kind of like get on their level, be in the spaceship or whatever, and then they see us going wild, and then it gives them like authority to let loose as well. But you really
Absolutely.
need to bring that fun factor, because they're
Absolutely.
kids. That's how
Absolutely.
they learn. They play.
Absolutely. And we're performing for them, right? They want to be entertained, they want to be performed. So that's what, I always think is like, we're on stage, we're performing, we're playing a character as well. The character of the teacher that has to be this larger than life character, which is so, so cute. So I love that you're talking about getting on their level, because that's like such an important thing.
It's like it's like entertainment. Like we got to entertain them. If we don't, we lose them. They're already looking up at the roof, or they're counting the wall cracks or something. So
because they get distracted easily, like at 3, 4. Like I know our girl, she can barely sit down for 2 minutes and watch. You have to be constantly going, changing tactic. Yeah, get down on their level and just speak their language.
Yeah, so cute. I love that so much. So before they start, the video goes out, and that's before their first trial class. So it's pretty much a what to expect, tour of the studio, what to bring, what's going to happen when they get there. Anything else before they get there, or then they arrive for the trial class?
Then they arrive for the trial class. They'll obviously get things like reminders and stuff. We try not to bombard them with too much information. It's just clear and concise, like with a little bit of fun in there as well. But yeah, just exactly where they need to be at what time, all that stuff just before. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, awesome. So they arrive at the trial class. What happens from the second that they walk in the door of your building?
The admin team will greet them, usually and hopefully by name. If we have a lot of trials on the day, obviously sometimes we're guessing. And then we will give them a little bit of a studio tour. We'll definitely ask them if they need to go to the bathroom or anything like that, and definitely show them around the space prior. I'll lead them up to their classroom.
You give them their name badges.
Oh, yeah, I definitely do that.
Name badges as stickers. They love stickers.
Yeah, we give them like a sticker name badge that we obviously write their name on. Yeah. And then we'll introduce them to the teacher and the classroom, and just show them kind of where they're going to be sitting. And then their teacher will take them from there. Usually we have assistants in each of our classes as well. And it's usually the assistant's job to then take over that position and welcome them into the studio. And as they're doing that, our admin team is then working with the parent to just say, we're going to let you watch the class. We do have viewing windows at the moment.
Yeah.
And then during the class, we'll come and we'll chat to you about kind of what's going on in the class and things like that.
But that's also a good thing about the admin knowing how the class is run as well. So then they can explain to the parents, oh, this is where they're doing this now. This is what they're learning, the focus of the class. So it's got that discussion with the parents.
Yeah, when I say that the assistant goes and takes over, then that trial becomes their main focus, and the admin still has a job to check in 2 or 3 times during the class with that parent, just to be like, oh, this is the section of the class where they're working on team building, or she'll come back, oh, this is the part where they're doing their freestyles, and what that does is this. So like educating the parent on why they're doing the things, not just like they're just dancing around doing nothing.
Oh, she looks cute. Yeah. I love that so much. So like, you've obviously really trained your staff on that, even your admin staff, especially if they don't have a dance background. You've had to go through the whole concept of the class, as well as the process, I guess, of, the handoff between the admin to the teacher or the assistant teacher, and that whole process. You must spend a lot of time training your staff on that sort of stuff, right?
Yes, a lot. I think our approach is that we want everyone to know everyone's job, and they should be able to tap in and take over if needed. So we don't really think of our team as like admin is separate to teachers in a sense. Like, of course it is, it's different. But admin needs to know what teachers are doing, and teachers need to understand the admin and how it works together. We do a lot of training, especially with studio growth as well. That's been such a help in training our team. And we're pretty regular with it. Like each term, we set our goals. They understand what their commitment is. And I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. We often go over the same things that we're training, because as much as you have an incredible team, sometimes they can forget things, or they have things going on in their own lives, or even they get comfortable. And you just have to,
and we all do.
We all do.
Yeah.
Just to be like, hey, remember, this is how I want things, and this is the quality that we're delivering. So definitely big on the team training.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. So, I think that's such an important thing, and that probably a step that a lot of people overlook is that training of the actual process, so that the child is getting the same experience no matter who's working, no matter which staff member's on that day, or who's off sick, or what's happened. Because I do find that a lot of studios, they're like, oh yeah, when I do it, I always give the parent a tour. But I don't think my admin team do that. But you haven't actually told the admin team that that's what you wanted to happen, for example. So I think that like ongoing training is so, so key. And I especially love, you talking about that you're pointing out to the parents more so the learning outcomes than anything else of the program and what they're learning. You said this develops teamwork, this is for independence, this is, whatever that is, because that's all about learning outcomes, which is such a big thing in our community now.
Definitely. And I think we have a lot of teachers who are parents as well. And it starts conversations, and then I'm learning a lot. Like last week we had a whole conversation with one of the teachers about the midline and how that really affects how, like if a child can't cross the midline by 4 years old, then they should go get tested, because it actually affects their reading and writing and different things like that. And
what's a midline? I don't even know what a midline is.
The midline of the body. So if you put a line down the bottom, the center of the body, and then as they like crisscross and things like that,
their footwork and stuff.
By the age of 4, she was saying, they should be able to definitely cross the midline. And this is something that teachers actually learn, during their studies and stuff. So it was really interesting conversation. I need to do a lot more research into that. But I just thought, it builds so much.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely, I think, more about the outcomes. Like Samson and I are teachers. If we take our daughter somewhere, or dancers, we're not expecting that she's going to be brilliant straight away. It's more for us about the connections she's making in the classes. Is she sharing? Is she playing nicely? Different things like, not like, is she hitting splits yet? Although actually Samson's probably like, can she do a handstand?
We're all dance parents, right? It's all those things. You've got to get them good at 2, right? They've got to be able to do that handstand at 2.
But yeah,
I know what you mean. Like, as a parent, that's what you want to know, right? You want to know if they're waiting their turn, and if they can talk to the other kids, if they can take direction well, if they can be patient. I think patience is a big thing that we always want for our kids to learn to wait. I think that's so important.
And I think a big thing too is, like, I know in our classes we do a broader age range, so usually from like 2.5 to that 5-year-old age. Our reasoning for that is because we feel like the 5-year-olds become leaders, and that helps them transition really well into kindy. And those younger ones then have leaders that they are able to learn quickly off. But having that broad age range really means that the milestones are sometimes highlighted a little bit more. So if parents are watching your classes, and I find this most of all with concentration, if your little ones are losing concentration a bit, parents think or take that as their child as being disinterested. However, it's just obviously really natural. And when you work with kids on a daily basis and in quite large amounts, you understand that that's quite normal. But from that perspective, they're just looking at their kid drifting off and thinking, oh my gosh, they're not into the class anymore. So it's so important for the admin or whoever it is, even if it's the teacher who chats to them after, just highlighting these things as being completely normal milestones for that age group.
Absolutely. And highlighting that there's different ages in the one class too, and explaining, hey, yes, you saw a little Susie, but she's been with us for 3 years. And, she's about to move on to the school program, and, explaining that I think is so, so valuable. Awesome. So that's sort of as the class starts. What else do you do in that first kind of trial class? What do you do, for example, if there's a child that refuses to go into class? How do you guys kind of handle that? The one that's crying, hiding behind mum, and just doesn't even want to walk into the building.
Well, I think it really depends on the situation, on this case, where if they're a little bit shy on coming into the door, a big one I use is they become my sticker person. So they stand next to me, and then I'm like, do you want to give them a sticker or them? That's a good one. Also,
responsibility, giving
them responsibility in the class. Complimenting something that they're wearing, just to create a conversation with the kid, and just it's just trying to get them comfortable within the space as much as you can. Sometimes it's a little bit hard, so then I'll bring the parent in with us, and I get to sit in the corner on the chair with them and just wait it out until they feel comfortable enough to come do something and be a part of the class.
And I think
absolutely,
with training your team is knowing when the key points are to try a new tactic. Like sometimes if we have a very new teacher, they'll keep on the same thing, and I'm like, no, they're not responding to that. Like, you need to change tactics, okay? Like the stickers haven't worked, what's next? And then also knowing actually they're not responding to really anything. It's time to get the parent in, make them feel comfortable, settle them down, watch the class a bit, and then during the class starting to get them involved. So little things we'll do is we use floor markers on the floor. So instead of getting them to walk to their floor marker, we'll give mum a floor marker while she's sitting down or dad, and then also bring the floor marker to them. So little things to get them engaged. We do cleanup kind of stuff in the class where each person has to pick up something. We would take the stuff to them to hopefully guide them to the cleanup station. So just constantly not giving up on them or disregarding them during the class as well. If different tactics hasn't worked, always having which would be our assistant, checking in on them to making sure that.
I think that's so important, not giving up on them. I find that some younger teachers, when they don't have great training, they're like, oh, that child's not going to do it. And that's it. They're like, oh, they're not going to come in, they're going to be a crier. not for me, they're not going to be in my class. But it's that not giving up on them and knowing that everyone takes their own amount of time, right? Like, it is going to take some kids a couple of weeks, and allowing them to have that time is so important. So, the child that, they sat in the corner with mum or dad the whole time, didn't participate. How does the conversation go after that class is finished, when they just kind of didn't participate at all?
I think throughout the class, it's like educating the parent, like this is normal, like telling them the kids come into a whole new space, new faces, and if you've got more than 10 kids in the class, it's like overwhelming for the kid. So trying to make the parent feel, oh, okay, yeah, I totally understand that. Like this is a new space, like just getting them used to that, and that's throughout the whole class, and that's where talking about checking in on the kid and just making sure, just bringing up all these little moments of like telling them this is totally normal.
And the admin team has to do those check-ins in between as well. So she would come into the classroom and be like, oh, little Susie's not doing it yet. Totally fine. Like she would be the one, or he would be the one to reassure the parent during the class as well. And then obviously as they come out, say, oh, totally normal. How about we try next week? They will feel more comfortable now that they know the faces of their teachers, they've seen the space, and then they'll just try again next week. There may be times though where our team will be like, actually, that kid is a little bit too young, or they're not quite ready for a class environment. And I think it's better to be really honest so that you're saving that relationship rather than push a student into a class that they're not going to thrive in. So I think also that's another training thing, obviously, with your team, to be able to evaluate different situations. But often it is just the case that they're overwhelmed, a little bit nervous, scared. And it's more about the separation from mum and dad rather than actually the class itself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, what you're saying about checking in with the mum or the dad is so important, and educating the parent, because quite often I find it's the parent that's embarrassed. Like they're actually like embarrassed, going, oh my God, I thought my kid would be an A student already and they're not. Like, oh my God, are they going to fail at life? Like I think some people have that whole thing, right, that they get in their heads about it.
That's it. They have there's a lot of they say, oh, my kid dances at home a lot, and I go, of course, because they're comfortable. That's their space. Like they're coming into a whole new space. Then they have to get used to this space. So that's a big one where they're trying to put it from their home to here to the space. But
And also, it's just like a different environment. Like we all talk to each other every day, but if I put you in front of a crowd to do public speaking, that's very different, So I think it's just, I always put it back on the parent and be like, just how would you feel going to your first class, having to dance in front of everyone? And then they usually are like, oh yeah, that's actually so true. Like, like we'll feel really nervous, and I'd probably like fall into the back. And I'm like, yeah, like they're only 3, so they don't have any skills that we do to adapt to different situations quickly. So, yeah.
That's so true. You mentioned that, I think, on last week's podcast as well. Like, if I was going to a new gym class, I'd be nervous. Like, absolutely. I'm nervous to meet new people. If you're going into a party where you don't know anybody and you're walking into a room full of people that already know each other, we get nervous. Adults get nervous all the time. Like, exactly. I've never thought about it like that.
And we're always like, are you going to a party?
We just use technology.
That's with all those social parties that I go to all the time in my crazy social But, like totally get it. But I'm like that, we had a new parent meeting the other day at school, and it was like, all went to the coffee shop, and the same thing. I didn't know any of the parents and I was nervous. Like it happens to the best of us, right? Like it is what it is. I love that so much. So that's the child that kind of is scared and cries and that kind of thing. Do you touch base with them again during the week before that next trial class to really kind of encourage them to come back? Like how do you kind of work that?
Yeah, sometimes we do actually. We usually get one of our team to send a video and just say like something really quick, like, hey, it was really good to have Susie in the class. I'm so excited to see you again, Susie. Here's a move that we're going to do or something in the class. Kind of just prepping them in another touch point. but yeah, we do that quite often. We're very like face people, like for people to see our team's face and hear our voice, and not so much emailing. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's such a big game changer, right? Because we're all performers, we're all past performers. That's why we've, come into this love of dance, right? And kids like that, like, especially like, you send the email to the mum doesn't really read it to the kid because they get busy. However, if they get a cute video, they're going to show it to them.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like. I would never read a message to my 5-year-old daughter because like it means nothing to her and she doesn't care. But if she got a cute video or a cute photo, I would definitely show her. So I think, putting yourself in those shoes. But I love the idea of like that communicating through video. I think that's absolute key.
Yeah, and I think it just then is another touch point for the child to feel familiar with whoever's in the classroom before in that next trial. Because you want to kind of be in their face in a sense as much as possible so that they're feeling that comfortability.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So anything else amazing that you do, what about the child that has that great first experience? How do you kind of like finish off that trial class, obviously get them all enrolled and all of those sort of things, but, how else do you set them up for success in your program moving forward, I guess?
So we then introduce them the next week. They'll get their uniform straight away. We do things a little bit different at our studio. So their uniforms included in their membership. That's always real. They're really excited to get that. So they love being a part of the team. So they go usually into their second class with their T-shirt ready to go. And then we obviously have things like lots of communication with the parent about how our studio communicates, if there's anything that they need to prepare, such as we have like a studio app where we do a lot of communication through. We upload a lot of videos, particularly for our preschoolers. So we'll make sure they're all set up with that. And different things like at the moment, obviously, we're working on concert stuff. So we'll put a lot of like things like practice videos and stuff like that they can blow up on their TV and they can do the dance with. They have their music with our mascots as well, which they love. So yeah, we do a lot of mostly the communications with the parent, and then the child gets that connection obviously in the classroom. They'll get their sticker chart on that second day too, which they oh my God, is that not such a good little thing? They
the sticker charts, they love those, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the most of it.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I think it's just that constant touch points and, not just leaving anything to chance. I think that's the biggest thing is, everything that you've talked about is obviously well planned out and well choreographed, for want of a better word, right? You choreograph what your team do, you choreograph who's going to say what to whom at what times, when they get their sticker chart, when they get their uniform, when they get that piece of information, like have the whole thing planned out. And, I think that customer journey is so important, like I talked about before, so that everybody gets the same thing. And also it's scalable so that as studio owners, we don't have to be there all the time and do all the things. If it's very clear and trained to our team, then anyone can jump in, no matter who's off, no matter if we want to have a week off and have a holiday or, someone's sick or whatever that is. I think that's like absolute key so that no child misses out.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think, do you know what? Like that takes time. Like I know we're having this amazing podcast, but the team training takes it's got to be consistent. You can't just do one training session and think that you can go on a holiday. It takes so much time and repetition and just a lot of trusting your team to be able to deliver that as well. And I say that because when we're in times of growth, sometimes we just feel like that our main focus is getting more students. But if you don't have the choreography in place, then that growth you're not going to be able to sustain that and retain the students. And it's going to be like, that bucket with all the holes in it. So I just think that's such an important key in educating your team on exactly what you want, because when we first started our studio, I think we were really scared to hire team, number one. But number two, just really scared to say, this is what we need and this is what we want. And like, I need you to either do it or, you're not
or
a great
don't,
fit
and
for us.
you're not part of it. Yeah.
And I feel like we were so scared to do that. And then when we started just being like, actually, this is exactly what we need. So the team responded so well because they were like, great, I understand exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I understand the outcomes I need to achieve, and I get the expectation. But sometimes I feel studio owners are so nervous to do that, and I get it because we were there.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with preschoolers, you need that.
I love that so much, and I think you've hit the nail on the head that a lot of people are scared, don't want to offend their teachers, don't want to suggest that they don't know what they're doing, and it's not about that, right? It's just about, it's your studio, and you want it to be choreographed and planned, and every sort of thing filled in, and be an absolute set process, I guess. And, it's not always about what's right and what's wrong, because there might be other teachers that have great ideas, don't get me wrong, and that can do incredible things, but it's not always about that. It's about wanting to have that consistency and doing it the same every single time, which means you need to set the rules and set the tone for the whole thing, right?
Yeah, and I think just picking it up in the moment, because at the moment I'm training 2 of our new team members, and rather than letting it fizzle, if there's something that didn't go well in the class, or if there's something like, you can't be doing that in the class, I literally just tell them straight after the class. We have a debrief. I'm like, hey, I love the way you handled this. This was great what you did this, but this one thing next time, this is what we got to do. Whereas before, maybe we were like a bit nervous to do that.
Yeah,
But now we're just like, how it is.
No, you were scared.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I don't know why. I think I just didn't want to offend them.
Nah.
And I didn't want them
to I get it.
bad job. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, I feel like now they've got more respect for us because we're like giving them more guidance and help and helping them grow. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly it, right? Like, the short, quick feedback, rather than waiting until it's this huge, big drama. If you see something that you don't want, tell them straight away. And it doesn't have to be a huge, big deal. It's not like, oh, you're being pulled into the principal's office and you're having this big sit down meeting and I'm not because otherwise it gets to that where it's just like, hey, by the way, just when doing across the floor, I just make sure that this kid is not the leader, or, whatever it is, like just something, but just giving them feedback constantly rather than letting it turn into a big deal.
Yeah. And then I think it gets worse if it turns into a big deal because they're like, oh my gosh, that was weeks ago I did that. And you're like, still bullshit.
Absolutely.
I think getting together as a team as well is like important, like having those weekly or monthly catch-ups, because then they'll feel much more a part of the values in the studio. So I feel like if it's one-on-one, it's kind of like they think you might be digging at them. But then if we say it in a group environment, they'll take it on a lot more.
That's what absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so key. And to me, it's all about that training of the staff, which I know you're really big on, both in your studio and with Lil Groovers program as well. I think, that's absolute key. But, oh my gosh, so many great nuggets in there today and so many great takeaways. We so appreciate your time. What an incredible chat. And I think, you guys do preschool so well. So thank you so much for joining us and giving us all these insights on like little First Ones trial classes.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. We love coming on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always so much fun. Hey, if you want to check it out, go and check out Lil Groovers on Instagram. They've got some exciting things coming your way soon. So make sure you check out on the Instagram and maybe, have a look at what they've got coming up because you might want to jump on that live launch. We can't wait to tell you all about it. I think we might have to spill some tea in the next week. So we will do that. Make sure you jump on next week's podcast and we're going to have to spill some tea. But until then, thanks so much. We've had an awesome podcast. We can't wait to see you next week.
Yee.